Alright, so I get a lot of questions because I post a lot on Facebook about how to do headlight restorations. So I figured I'd make a quick little tutorial video on how we do them here. Kind of the same as I do them home, just a little bit different kit. So yeah, here goes. I've already gone ahead and masked off the lights off just to save the paint from getting hit by the materials, and this is the kit that we use. We sell this here, and yeah, it's like $15 for this kit. You can buy it. Comes with this 500 grit sandpaper, 800 grit sandpaper, 3000 grit buffing pad, and 2 packets of clear coat. And basically, you're just gonna sand it with the 500 until it's a nice even coat. Sand it with the 500 just to get the imperfections, the scratches and whatnot out, and then you're gonna buff it, and then you're gonna add the clear coat. So let's get started. Also, you're gonna want to make sure you have either a drill or this air drill and a bottle of water, which I'll be filling this. Alright, so that's the first step done. The 500 grit, just like I said, just sand it down. I had to take it off to get some of these like kind of concaves, level them out. This is basically what you want it to look like. Obviously it doesn't look the best. You can see the sanding swirls and whatnot in it, and that's what the next one does. The 800. It'll take those swirls out of there. But for the most part, this is what you want it to look like after the first step is done with the 500 grit. So on to the next one. Oh, and I should mention, while you're sanding with this, you want to keep the pad like as flat up against as possible. You don't want to like use like the sides of it. That's how you end up digging in and making an uneven layer. And you don't want to stay in one spot. Keep moving, because if you stay in one spot, you can very easily start to melt the lens. So definitely want to keep moving. But let's get started with the 800 grit. Alright, so done with the 800 grit, and this is what she looks like. And yeah, it looks kind of ugly still. Still got some swirls, but more or less what you're doing is when you run your hand across it, you get a nice, like you don't feel any like spots or bumps. You got all the imperfections out. It's a nice, smooth, velvety texture. So now that that's done, we're gonna wet sand with the 3000. So let's get to it. Alright, 2 passes with the 3000 grit. Wet sanding, buffing, and this is what we're left with. Get all those swirl marks out of there. Still a little wet, so. But this is what we want it to look like, nice and clear. Now, I like to do all the sanding before I apply the last clear coat. That way it gives it a chance to fully dry. We don't end up with any runs. So I'll go ahead and I'll take care of the other light, and then we'll get this prepped for clear. Alright, so this one's all finished up now. Sanded and buffed. Now, I'll rip this tape off and I'll continue to let it dry. Just want to have a wet rag to get all this crap off, because if you let that dry on there, it's almost impossible to get off later. So I'll just splattering from wet sanding and everything. So I'll go ahead and get this taken care of, and then we'll add clear. Right, now everything's cleaned up, dry, tape's off. There's no risk of getting any water dropping through there. It's a nice, smooth, kind of velvety feeling to the headlight frame or lens. So let's get this clear. All right, there she is. Now that kit comes with 2 packets. I usually do 2 to 3 coats per headlight. 1 packet per headlight. Takes like maybe 15 seconds for a layer to dry before you add another layer, but that's the final product. Another successful headlight resto.